Hello, welcome to your social studies activity. This activity aligns with your Piedmont Triad area of North Carolina lesson for social studies. This will be taught the second week of this lesson. Let's review. We are making a connection to our social studies lesson. Remember, the yellow arrow is pointing to the Piedmont region of North Carolina. The Piedmont region is located between the coast and the mountains. Last week we did an activity where we read a book about the mountains. Today we are going to read a book about the coast. The coast is where you might find some beaches, like the Outer Banks. The Outer Banks is a famous area of beaches in North Carolina. Let's review our senses. You are going to need to know your senses for this activity. Over here we have smell. Breathe through your nose and smell around you. Maybe you could smell a flower and that would smell nice. Or maybe you would smell garbage and that would smell bad. The next sense is hearing. You use your ear to hear. You may not be able to use all of these senses, but remember, use the senses that you can use during this lesson. So even if you cannot hear, maybe you can smell, you can touch, you can definitely taste, and you can see. Our next sense is touch. You can touch something that is soft. Remember, soft like our yes card. Or maybe you can touch something that is rough, like the Velcro on our no card. The next sense is sight, to see. You use your eyes to see. Remember, you may not be able to use this sense, but perhaps you can use some of the other senses to explore the world around you. Taste. You use your mouth to taste. Your tongue has a whole bunch of little nerves on it, little taste buds, and that helps you taste different things. Maybe you like to taste sour food, like sour gummy bears. Or maybe you like sweet food, like cake. I don't know. Oh, some people like spicy food. Remember all of these senses. You are going to use them during our read aloud today. The book we are going to read is called Imagine the Beach. If you look over here, you can see the front cover of the book. The title is Imagine the Beach. It was written by Rachel Rice. We do not have an illustrator for this book because this book uses photographs, pictures that were taken with a camera. If you look down here, you can see our yellow star. That means we have a repeated storyline. Our repeated storyline is, I can use my imagination to visit the beach. Whenever you see that yellow star, I want us to say our repeated storyline together. Let's read. Turn the page. The title page, Imagine the Beach, written by Rachel Rice. There's a focus question. How do you use your senses when you go places? Remember we reviewed our senses together? Well, now you know why. This book is going to enhance or engage our senses. All right, let's start reading. We'll turn the page. Close your eyes. All right, I want you to close your eyes. We're going to start using our senses and our imagination. Let's turn the page. Can you imagine a beach in your mind? Do you see the yellow star? That means we have a repeated storyline. Our repeated storyline is I can use my imagination to visit the beach. Let's turn the page. What can you smell? Can you smell the salty air? So I want you to use your imagination to smell the salty air. Does it smell good? Does it smell bad? Use your imagination. Let's turn the page. What can you hear? Can you hear the crashing waves? If you can look at the picture, you'll see some waves crashing on a rock, and that makes a sound. So I want you to use your imagination to think of what sound that would make. Let's take a couple seconds to listen to the sounds of these crashing waves. Use your imagination. Pretend you are at the beach. What a relaxing sound. Let's keep reading. Turn the page. What can you see? Can you see the birds diving? Do you see the yellow star? That means we have a repeated storyline. Do you remember what our repeated storyline is? I can use my imagination to visit the beach. That's right. Look at this picture of these birds diving into the water. When you're in the ocean or at the ocean, you will see birds diving into the water to get food. Let's watch a short video of this so you can see what this looks like. Wow, did you see that bird dive into the water? That is a pelican. Pelicans gather bunches of water and fish in their neck. It's like a little extended neck, and then they spit out the water and they eat the fish. Watch them go. Ooh, wow, look at them diving into the water to get food. That was pretty cool. It was cool to see those birds diving into the water. Returning the page. What can you feel? Can you feel the rough sand? Sand. Do you remember something that is rough? The Velcro on your note card is rough. Let's turn the page. Can you taste? Can you taste the yummy ice cream? Have you ever had ice cream? That's a yummy thing to eat at the beach because usually when you're at the beach, it is hot, and ice cream is a great treat to eat when it's hot. What else can you imagine at the beach? What do your mind and senses tell you? Do you see the yellow star? That means it's our repeated storyline. Can you tell me the repeated storyline? I can use my imagination to visit the beach. Imagination to visit the beach. Great job. The end. That is the end of our story. I hope you enjoyed using your senses and reading that story with me. Now we are going to complete our graphic organizer for the story. Here is our graphic organizer. We are going to take this graphic organizer into 3 parts. The first part is going to have our title, author, and illustrator. The next part will have our characters, setting, and events. And last, we will talk about our narrator. Was the narrator the author or the characters? Let's get started. First, we want to know the title of the story. Do you remember the title of the story? Did you say, Imagine the Beach? That's right. The title of this story was Imagine the Beach. Let's move that title into the title section of our graphic organizer. Great job. Next, we are going to talk about the author. Remember, the author writes the words in the book. Do you remember the name of our author? Did you say Rachel Rice? That's correct. Rachel Rice is our author. She wrote the words. We do not have an illustrator for this book. There is no illustrator for this book because the pictures are taken with a camera. They are photographs. So we have a picture of a camera to go into our illustrator section of our graphic organizer. Next, we are going to talk about our character, setting, and events. First, let's start with our characters. Characters can be people, animals, things, anything that takes the focal point of the story, something the story is centered around, something that adds to the story's content. In this story, we have animals, but we also have people. And even though we don't know them by name, we know that this little girl is a person who was in the book. Do you remember her from the page where we smelt the salty air at the ocean at the beach? Let's move her into the character section. Great job. Next, we are going to talk about the setting. The setting can be a place, but the setting can also be a time. For this story, we are going to pick the place where the story took place. Do you remember the title of the story? Imagine the Beach. This story takes place at the beach. So we are going to move this picture of the beach into our setting section of our graphic organizer. Great job. Next, we are going to talk about an event. Do you remember when we read the page about the birds diving into the ocean to get food? And then we watched a video where we could see it happening in real life. This was an event in the story when the birds dove into the ocean. So we are going to move our picture of birds diving into our event section of our graphic organizer. Great job. Now we need to decide, who is the narrator of our story? Is it the author, or is it a character in this story who's narrating this book? We have lots of clues when we're reading to let us know who is narrating this story. Let's read this page again. What can you smell? Can you smell the salty air? The author is narrating this book because the author is addressing you. They're addressing the reader. They're not talking to this little girl. They're talking to you. They're asking you, can you smell? Can you smell the salty air? This little girl is not asking you those questions. She didn't write this book. It is the author. The author is the narrator of this story. Great job finishing our graphic organizer. It looks great. Thank you so much for joining me for this activity based on your social studies lesson. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.